Hello everyone, welcome to the Football Outpost, and I'm your host, Stoney Klango. Today on the show, we are going to be grading all the Premier League clubs for their performance in the season 2019-2020. All these clubs had expectations coming into the season. They had goals, they had targets, and targets, I would say, that pundits and experts in the football world gave to these clubs. Expectations that these clubs were supposed to perform or attain to. And based on those expectations, we're going to be grading the Premier League clubs for the 2019-2020 Premier League season of the year. So let's get started. This year saw Liverpool win their first title in about 30 years. It was a memorable one for the Red Club in the city of Liverpool, and they took the crown away from Manchester City, who had been champions and in I will say record point winning style because they won the league by 100 points. Liverpool were able to come close, garnering about 99 points for the Premier League season for the 2019-2020 season. So let's get started. Our first team is Liverpool, the champions of the Premier League for the 2019-2020 season. Liverpool were just simply phenomenal in this past season. They scored a bunch of goals. I mean, they did everything that you expect a champion of the Premier League to do. They played fluid, fast, flair, attacking football. I mean, football that so many teams could not figure out how to contain. They were so good. The front three of Mane, Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino and Salah were just terrifying to their opponents, and they scored a bunch of goals. Their midfield, which had people like Fabinho and Henderson, were just such a good midfield. And we cannot forget to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold, the right back, who was just simply incredible for Liverpool. And so they get an A+ rating in our Premier League grading for the clubs. They were just simply phenomenal. They were outstanding in every patch of the field. I expect them to be challenging for the title come next season in the 2020-2021 Premier League season. So Liverpool were just simply outstanding. Oh, we cannot forget to talk about Virgil van Dijk. He was just an amazing defender. In the last year, he was a runner-up in the Ballon d'Or awards to Lionel Messi. But I tell you, he was a simply incredible defender, and his talent and his leadership on the field helped Liverpool towards their first title in over 30 years in the top flight. Liverpool were simply amazing, and they get an A+ rating for this Premier League season. The second team was Manchester City. They were the former champions of the Premier League. I would say they had a season that was not so good for them. Coming off the expectations of a season where they had broken so many records while Liverpool chased their tail. I will give them a B- for this season. I thought they looked incredible at times. They scored a bunch of goals at times. I mean, Raheem Sterling was in incredible form. Kevin De Bruyne breaking records with 18 assists in the Premier League. He was simply phenomenal. Some people could say he was about the best player in the league for the season. They were a great team, but they had moments where they were patchy, especially before the restart. They lost a bunch of games. I think it was about 9 games they lost, drew a bunch of games. They were not up to their best. They did not take it up to the gear we know they could take it up to. You could say people like Sergio Aguero had lengthy spells where he had injuries, and you also had a destroyed Leroy Sané, who has now earned a £55 million move to Bayern Munich, the Bundesliga champions. They were not at their best, but they were still frighteningly good in some games. So for that, I would give them the grading of B-. They get a B-. And we go to the third team. The Manchester rivals of Manchester City, Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in world football. I'll tell you what, Manchester United had a season, I would say, of two halves, right? In the first half of the season, they were simply terrible. They were just terrible. They were outright terrible. They could not score goals. They were conceding a ton of goals. I mean, this was a team that had brought in the likes of Daniel James and Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire from Leicester City to shore up their back line. And they were able to shore up their back line somewhat, but they still leaked a bunch of goals and they could not play well until the arrival of the Portuguese star Bruno Fernandes. I tell you what, when Bruno Fernandes came in to Manchester United in the January transfer window, he simply transformed the fortune of this club. When Bruno Fernandes came in, they did not lose a single game after Bruno Fernandes joined the club till the end of the Premier League season. They went on an unbeaten run in the Premier League from when he joined the club to the end of the season. I mean, they even had an unbeaten run in all competitions till they lost to Chelsea towards the end of the season in the FA Cup semi-finals. When he came in with the introduction also of the young star, 18-year-old Mason Greenwood, talented player, phenomenal kid, one that is sure to go to the heights of European football. He was simply amazing. He has got a great left foot and he's got a great right foot. You take him to the left, he can come to the right and shoot with his right foot. You take him to the right, he can come over to the left and shoot with his left foot. He can bend it in the top corner, into the top corner. He can place it to the side. I mean, he's a simply incredible finisher, alongside with the likes of Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford, who had come back from his 3 months back injury. Simply incredible front three. They were able to change their fortune because they were lagging in 6th and 7th place, but they were able to get on an unbeaten run and change their fortune and were able to sneak into the top 4, coming in 3rd place. So for that patchy season they have, I'll give them a B-. They're supposed to be competing with the likes of Liverpool and Manchester City for the league, and they were 33 points off Liverpool. Not acceptable for a club of such stature. They should do better next season, and that's why I give them a grade of B-. Manchester United gets a grade of B-. Let's see, what's our next team? The team that comes in 4th place, Chelsea. Chelsea Football Club. I give them a simple B. You may wonder, why do I give them a simple B? Well, they had a new manager, one of their old legends, Frank Lampard, coming to the club to take the reins of the ship. And he did such a good job in his first season as a Premier League manager. He was manager of Derby County in the Championship, did his best to try to bring them. They didn't make the promotion, but he was so good, and his old club, Chelsea, decided to bring him up to take the reins of the club, and he did such a phenomenal job. Why do I say he did such a phenomenal job? Well, first, for one, they lost their best player in Eden Hazard, who went all the way to Spain, to Real Madrid, and Chelsea had a ban in the transfer window, and so they couldn't go out to buy any players. And yet, Frank Lampard was able to steer the ship. He was able to still carry them to the top 4. I will say, with no transfer window, with you losing your best player in Eden Hazard, and you are just having to work with a bunch of kids like Mason Mount and Tammy Abrams. I mean, he did such an incredible job bringing a young team together and put in a phenomenal challenge for the top 4. For that, I'll give Chelsea a B rating. They come in 4th place in the league, and they get a B rating from me. Let's look at our 5th club, Leicester City. Leicester City, they get a B- from me. Why did they get a B- from me? Well, if you had told anyone that Leicester City was going to come in 5th place in the league this season, they would say probably not. They'll probably say they will come in 7th to 10th place, but they did, and they made an incredible run to the finish in the Premier League like they had not done since the 2013-2014 season when they won the league. I mean, this is a club that always does things that people don't expect them to do. With Brendan Rodgers as their manager, they were able to make an incredible run in the first half of the Premier League season. Now, in the second half of the Premier League season, they didn't do so well. After the restart, they had lost a bunch of players like Shoyunku and Madison to injury, and so because of this injury, they were not quite able to make a good of a run as they did in the beginning part of the Premier League, and they kind of faltered. They were in third for a long time during the season, and they faltered as Manchester United made an unbeaten run to creep into the Premier League top four, and Chelsea held their stand, and so by that, Leicester City were just barely by the last day. If they had won against Manchester United on the last day of the Premier League season, they would have made it into the top four, but they were not so fortunate enough to, and so by that, they make the 5th place in the league, and because of that, Leicester City get a B- rating from me. If they hadn't made it into the top four, I would have given them an A- rating, but they barely made they barely made 5th place, and so because of that, I give Leicester City a B- rating. Incredible first half of the season, not so good second half of the season. Leicester City Football Club get a B- rating for me. Let's see who is next. Tottenham Hotspur, they get a C-. Now, some of you may say, whoa, Stoney, that's such a harsh rating. Well, I'll tell you what, they were in dire straits when this news 2019-2020 season came along. Mauricio Pochettino, as manager of Tottenham Hotspur, had taken them to the final of the Champions League with Liverpool, where they lost to Liverpool. They had had an incredible run in world football, whether in the Premier League or in European competitions. But this past season was not their season. They were in terrible shape, and due to that, Daniel Levy, their president, decided to let go of their manager, Mauricio Pochettino, and bring in the former manager of Chelsea and Manchester United and Real Madrid and Inter Milan, no other but Jose Mourinho. What did we expect? Well, Jose Mourinho did try to bring in a little stability into the club with stars like Harry Kane and the South Korean international doing wonders. Son, he was able to guide them to a 6th place finish in the league. Not so good for the expectations they had coming into this season with the likes of Son and Harry Kane. And Jose Mourinho, during the transfer break, January transfer window, was able to bring in Bergwijn from the Netherlands, and it was able to steer the ship to some form of stability, and they were able to come 6th place in the league. For that, I give them a C- rating, just because of their expectations. They were supposed to make top four. They were miles off it, and for that reason, I give Tottenham Hotspur a C- rating for this past Premier League season. Let's go on to our next club, Wolverhampton Wanderers, the Wolves Football Club. These guys came in an incredible 7th place finish, which was basically the league finish they had last season. They get an A-. I don't give them an A+ because they were not able to. I thought they were going to be able to maybe fight their way into top four. They were in an incredible form with the likes of Raul Jimenez, just pouring in the goals, and they had marvelous winger, strong winger, supplying the goals for Raul Jimenez, who put in a bunch of goals for the season, with the likes of João Moutinho in midfield, staring at midfield for them. I thought they were going to be able to make a good enough run to make it into the top four, or at least be really close to making it into the top four. They kind of faltered towards the end since they had a tired squad and their bench was not as good as their first team. So for that, I'll still give them an A- rating. Hey, they are still in the Europa League and they could make a huge run in that and contest for the title there. If they get a title in the Europa League, I will give them an A+ for the season. So Wolves get an A- rating for me for the 2019-2020 Premier League season. Let's go on to our next club, Arsenal, the North London club, Arsenal Football Club. Their fans would have been disappointed with the finish that they had in the league. Their fans would have been expecting them to push for the top four, or at least make it real close to the top four spot. They did not do that. They came in at 8th place, and so they get a C- rating for me. With the likes of Alexander Lacazette and Aubameyang, I expected them to get a higher league finish than they did. And so for that reason, I give them a C minus. Yes, they lost their manager in Unai Emery, who the club thought were not doing well. They brought in Mikel Arteta, who the club brought in to try to steer the ship and make a better run in the league. They did make a better run in the league. They do now tend to have a sense of identity in how they play. You can kind of see that they know what they're doing on the pitch, which they didn't quite have under Unai Emery. So they do have good prospects going forward, but they still didn't have a good enough season for me. Now, I tell you what, if they win the upcoming FA Cup final against Chelsea, I will take them to a B rating. But for now, they get a C minus rating for a not so good run in the Premier League in this past 2019-2020 season. Arsenal Football Club gets a C minus rating for me. Next is the one and only Sheffield United Football Club. I mean, these guys had an incredible run. So many pundits and experts in the game of football were expecting them to be relegated this season. You know, just newcomers, what are they going to be able to offer to the league? Well, here's what they offered to the league. They offered fast, flair-full attacking football. They have an incredible style under this manager, and I tell you what, the Blades did an incredible job. I mean, they were even hanging around 5th and 6th place for a long time in the Premier League. They did an incredible job, and I'll give the Blades an A minus rating. Such an incredible run. I expect them to keep it up with such a little squad for the next season because of the style of football that they play. Going on to our next club, Burnley Football Club. Burnley. From a city that has only about 90,000 people, this club continues to impress under their manager, Sean Dyche. They continue to play a level of football that's needed to keep them apace. And for them to be having a 10th place finish in the league, simply incredible. Simply incredible. Good play, Burnley. Y'all are making your fans proud. They get a B minus from me. Incredible. I think they can have a better run, and so they have a B minus rating from me. They had a good season once again, just like they did last season. And we go to our next team, Southampton, who come in 12th place in the Premier League. Southampton Football Club. Now, I expected them to be around this place, so because of that, I give them a B rating for the past Premier League season. They come in, I mean, they had an 8-0 loss to Leicester City early on in the league, and it felt like everything was just going to collapse. It felt like the whole world was just going to sink underneath them. But their manager did not give up. He pulled his squad together, and they went on a good run where they were through which they were able to get a 12th place finish in the league. I'll say good job, guys. I am always for the guys who are able to fall but not stay there, but come back up, rise back up. That is exactly what Southampton did, and for that I give them a B rating for this past Premier League season. The next team is Everton Football Club, led by Carlo Ancelotti right now. I will say I give them a C minus rating. I thought they were not as impressive as everyone thought they were going to be. They spent millions of pounds on players coming into the club. I mean, players like Moise Kean from Juventus. You would think that they would have had a top 10 place finish in the league. They were not able to do that, and for that they get a C minus rating from me. They ought to do better. Under a world-class manager like Carlo Ancelotti, you will think that they will be able to do better. They've got phenomenal players. I mean, Moise Kean, incredible players that they can put together a run in the Premier League and at least have a top 7, top 8 finish. So for them coming in 13th place, not good enough. And so for that, I give them a C minus rating in the league. Our next team is Newcastle Football Club, the Magpies. Oh, the Magpies, you know what? I give them a B minus rating. I give them a B minus rating. Why will I give them a B minus rating? Well, because they've had so much chaos around them. I mean, right now, today we found out that the Saudi consortium that was in charge in talks with their owner in trying to get the club for like about 300 million pounds just pulled out of the talks. And that was with Mike Ashley, their owner, because the Premier League were kind of dragging their feet about it, due to allegations of human rights abuses. Their fans will be feeling distraught right now. But their fans can at least go away knowing that them coming in 14th in the league where people were thinking they may be relegated. Because of that, I give them a B minus, because in the midst of all the chaos and the confusion and the craziness around their club, they were able to make a good run to stay in 14th place in the league. So for that, I give the Magpies, the Newcastle Football Club, a B minus rating. Our next team is Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace, the guys will live and breathe in Selhurst Park in London. I'll tell you what, I give Crystal Palace a C rating. Why do I give them a C rating? I expected better from them. I expected better from Crystal Palace. I mean, with a flying, pacey winger with skills and flair like Wilfred Zaha, I expected them to do better. They've got a good striker in Christian Benteke. They've got another good striker in Ayew. They've got a good forward line. So I was expecting them to do better, and they didn't do as good as I thought they were going to. And so for that, I give them a C rating. Now, I'll tell you what, they had a first good half of the season, but after the restart, they did not even win a game. I mean, draws and all losses, not good enough. Not good enough, Crystal Palace. You got to do better. So for that, I give them a C rating in the league. The next team is Brighton Hove Albion. Brighton Football Club. I'll tell you what, people were thinking these guys were going to go down. People were thinking these guys were going to be relegated, but they were able to, come together and have a good run. Not such a good run because they're still coming in 16th place, and so for that reason, I'm gonna give them a C rating. Brighton had a few games in the season, but they were not able to put a good run to push them closer to 10th place. I'll tell you what, they don't have all the resources like the bigger clubs around them do, so for that, I'll give them a C rating. I expect them to do better by next season. The next team is West Ham United. West Ham United, under the leadership of David Moyes. I tell you what, these guys fought for their lives. They fought for their lives. They were able to garner about 38 points. They had a draw with Manchester United on the second game to the last game of the season that was able to ensure their survival in the league. I tell you what, with players like Declan Rice and Antonio, who scored incredible goals in the restart. I'll tell you what, he was probably the best player after the restart. Scored 4 goals. 4 goals. He put 4 goals against past Norwich. Incredible player. Incredible player. They've got some really good players like Antonio and Declan Rice. I tell you what. And I think next season, and Ogbonna at the back. I mean, next season they should be able to make a run. They didn't make as good of a run with the players that they have. I expected more from them. I expected better from them, seeing that they had come in, I think, 10th or 11th place in the previous season. I expected a better run from them. But come on, the Hammers. You got to do a better job next season. For this season, I'll give you a C rating. At least you stayed up, and survived. In the league is at least what matters most, even when you can have a good run. So for that, I'll give you a C rating. I'll tell you what, the next team is Aston Villa. Aston Villa, under the leadership of Jack Grealish, they were able, by just a little, on the last day of the league, they were able to secure survival in the league. What an incredible achievement for them. People thought they were going to go down, but they fought through thick and thin till the last day of the Premier League season, this past Saturday, and they were able to come in at 18th place, barely surviving from going into relegation into the championship. So for that, I'll give them a C+. A C+ because they were so close to getting out, and so they barely passed. So for that, I'll give them a C+ rating. I'll tell you what, the other guys who got relegated, the other 3 teams who got relegated all get the same grade from me, an F. It's a failure if you're not able to survive. I don't care how good you think you played. It's a failure if you're not able to survive. And so, what do we have in 18th place? Bournemouth. Bournemouth Football Club. Come on, Eddie Howe. Under the leadership of Eddie Howe, I expected this team to do better. They had players like Fraser, Josh King, Nathan Ake at the back, who Manchester City right now seems to be getting his services for next season. They had some good players who could score a bunch of goals. I thought they were going to be able to get, a stronger league finish, and they did not. And so they had a terrible, terrible year. For that, you know what? I give them an F rating. An F rating, Bournemouth. Come on, you can do better. I tell you what, though, I'm putting my hopes that they're going to be able to make a strong run to come back to the Premier League next season if they get their act together. Our next team is Watford. Oh, Watford. You've got players like Danny Welbeck who can score bicycle kicks. You should be staying up. For that reason, you still get an F rating from me. You're relegated. If you are relegated, you get an F rating no matter what. And we go to our last team. Norwich. Norwich, whom a bunch of clubs had a field day with. They get an F rating from me. I know that they don't have the resources to compete with the others in the Premier League. It's a club that doesn't like to spend. They try to hold on to survival by trying to find a few good players. They had players like Pukki, who was able to score a few goals in the first half of the season, but they just flailed off in the latter part of the season, and they were relegated with games to go. They didn't have a good season. Come on, guys, come back to the Premier League. But for now, you get an F rating from me. So that is all of my rating for the 2019-2020 Premier League season. Let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think about my grading and analysis of all the clubs in the Premier League for the 2019-2020 season. If you love this video, please hit the like button below and do not forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can get more videos like this. We are always posting videos about match reviews, pre-match analysis, post-match analysis, analysis of comments from managers. We're covering transfers in world football. So please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.